for our bell work today, what I asked you to do was to determine the y values of interval endpoints. So for number 1, therefore, f of negative 2 would equal 3 times negative 2 plus 4. Should be negative 2. And f of 5 should equal 3 times 5 plus 4, which should be, I believe, 19. And hopefully you agree with those two answers. And then in number 2, g of 1 is going to be 3 times 1 cubed plus 5 times 1 minus 4, which is going to be 4. And g of 4 is going to be 3 times 4 cubed plus 5 times 4 minus 4, which should be, let's see, 64 times 3 is 192 plus 20 is 212 minus 4, 208, I believe. Please check that, make sure it's right. Number 3. H of negative 2 is going to be negative 2 cubed minus 3 times negative 2 squared, which is negative 8 minus 12 is negative 20. And h of positive 4 is positive 4 cubed minus 3 times positive 4 squared. 64 minus 48 is 16. Here we have these endpoints. The focus of things today happens to be looking for what we call extrema on an interval. And what we're saying is, given a set of numbers, x minimum, x maximum, within that group of numbers, what's the largest y number that I have and what's the smallest y number that I have? Those are known as the extrema, and we want to be able to identify what those values are. And we have a reason for this later. Eventually we'll be graphing and we'll want to look at the entire number line, but right now, not only do we have this on an interval, but I'm actually going to adapt this just a little bit and say on a closed interval. And what that really means is, like on our bell work, each one of these is a closed interval where we start and stop and we include the endpoint within our interval of numbers. And so that means that for this problem number 1 here, this is my interval and this is my equation, and we're going to use all 3 of these bell work questions as examples as we go along, looking for extrema on an interval. We don't necessarily have to graph these problems, but I will reference the graph to talk about what's going on and what we're finding. So for question number 1, we go back and look at it again. You're going to see that f of x is equal to 3x plus 4, and the interval x is between negative 2 and positive 5. Now, characteristic-wise with this particular equation is we know that this is a line. We also know that this line is increasing because the slope is positive. So that means it's an increasing line. Now, one of the things that we're going to want to do with this problem is we're going to want to be able to find the slope.